Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, Canine Behaviourist at Good Doggy. So it's not uncommon for my clients to talk to me about experiences their dogs have had at pet-related businesses. Maybe that's their dog walker or their dog groomer, the vet, or perhaps their play group, something like that. And sometimes people will tell me about experiences their dogs have had which have led to them having to move to a different provider, or maybe they've had to stop using that kind of service altogether. And when I hear their stories, I think that actually a lot of the problems that that dog has had could have been avoided. Very often their owner feels like the behaviour has come out of nowhere. Maybe it's come as a bit of a surprise. It was unprovoked or unexpected. But for whatever reason, the dog has behaved in such a way that it's felt necessary to move them on to another service provider or to cancel that kind of service altogether. Maybe that's why I'm there, because they want some help to try and solve this problem. But often these problems don't come out of nowhere. So I want to talk a little bit today about the types of behaviour that you shouldn't ignore if you're a groomer or a dog walker or somebody like that working with other people's dogs, and how those behaviours, when they do get ignored, can escalate into bigger problems. So I've presented 5 main problem behaviours that we're going to go through. Before we even look at those, it's important to understand the state of mind that some dogs come in to their groomers or their vets or whatever. When they arrive, they're already actually in a state of anxiety. And that could be for lots of different reasons. Maybe they've had an experience at a place like yours before, which they are referring to, and that's making them anxious. Perhaps their expectations are something might happen when they're with you that they don't like. Perhaps they are afraid if they're at the vet. Maybe their last experience was they had the jabs and that caused them a little bit of pain. So perhaps they're just trying to avoid that. But it might not be as obvious as that. So sometimes dogs get anxious when they know their owners are going to leave them. A dog that has separation anxiety might actually find being in the groomers, for example, for the day, or going away with a dog walker might leave them with a bit of anxiety because they're going away from their owners, they're going away from their family. They might be anxious about new things. Some dogs are better at accepting new experiences, new smells, new objects than others. So a very resilient dog might be able to walk into any premises. He'll see loads of things he's never seen before and quite confidently just wander about and explore and discover what is in your premises himself. Maybe you're a dog walker and he's very sociable and he's great at meeting new dogs, but not all dogs are like that. So actually the idea of having to get used to new things might be quite off-putting for some dogs. It might be a bit overwhelming if they're not well socialized. That might be other dogs, there are other dog smells that also could be overwhelming. So there's loads and loads of good reasons why a dog might, before you've even done anything with them, already be feeling quite overwhelmed. And when a dog becomes overwhelmed, it pushes them closer to the point of going over their threshold. So the threshold, I did a video about threshold and it's worth checking that out. But basically, when a dog is under threshold, they are able to cope in their environment. They are responsive. You'll be able to talk to them, ask them to do simple things they know really well, and they'll be able to respond to that. When they've gone over threshold, the experience they have, whether it's anxiety based or overexcitement or angry or fear based, whatever emotion is they're feeling, when they go over threshold, that has overtaken and that's become overriding of all of their behavior. So they're not listening now, they're not paying attention to anything that you're asking them, and they're likely to be much more reactive. So this is often one thing that I ask people to consider when you're working with other people's dogs, is that this could possibly be the situation for your dog that's in front of you right now, that they are actually really, really close to that threshold. They might not look it, they might be internalizing it a lot. If they're not confident in the new environment, then they certainly will be keeping it inside. But there will be some clues that they are getting close to this, and I'm just going to talk about those now for you. So the first one is that a dog might be pulling away from you. When a dog pulls away, it's a sign they're trying to tell you that they need more space and more time before they approach something. Maybe they've predicted something's coming next and they're not quite ready for it. Maybe they just need a bit of time just to relax and figure out what's happening, figure out what's going on around them, figure you out perhaps. A dog might do this, for example, to avoid getting their harness on, to go for a walk. Maybe they don't want to be put up onto a table, or perhaps they're trying to avoid a dog approaching. So in this video here, we can see this dog is being held by this boy. He's licking his lips a lot, and now he's trying to escape. This dog is trying to get away. So if you were to pursue that at any level, then that's going to end up escalating, because that dog's going to end up feeling cornered. They're going to feel trapped. And this will then escalate into potentially something like a snap or a bite, because when a dog's not allowed to pull away, to get away in that moment, then all they have is to escalate the situation. So they'll start to feel defenseless. They have a couple of options when they go into this kind of self-defense mode: fight, flight, and freeze. Obviously, if we don't allow them to move away, the flight option, then that restricts the choices that they have. Pulling away is already a sign that they've ruled out freeze. So the option now is just to fight. And that's the corner that we keep them in when we force them to do something. So instead, if you feel the dog is trying to pull away from you when you're trying to put a harness on them, maybe you're trying to brush them, you're doing something with that dog, then just stop and let them take a moment. Let them reassess the situation, because sometimes it just takes a moment to take a little breath, and the dog then can just come down a little bit in that emotional state. So when they start to approach threshold, this is like a scale. So they'll start very low on the scale, and then the more they need to up the ante, if you like, then they will slowly start to move up that scale. So when we give them a moment, we stop, we take a pause, we take a breath, then it allows them to come back down again. So it might mean that rather than being at level 6 and getting very close to threshold, actually we can give them a moment and they can get back to a level 4 state of anxiety, which actually is maybe closer to a state where you're able to work with them in, and they will actually be able to accept their harness going on, or getting in their van, or climbing up onto the vet's table or something like that. But often just a little moment spent here can allow that whole situation to kind of just de-escalate. And as we know, the closer they get to threshold, the more likely it is their brain is going to be switched off, and their reactive emergency brain will start to take over and make decisions, and that's where things start to go wrong. So just that little moment just to let them relax will help with the dog that's pulling away from you. So staring is another sign that things are starting to go very wrong. This is quite an early sign, and when you see a dog has started to stare, then you'll also maybe find that their shoulders have started to stiffen up. You'll maybe see that their ear position is changing, their tail will be a lot stiffer, maybe it looks a little bit twitchy. If you're grooming them, you might feel that muscle tension changing in their body. If you're trying to walk them, then you might see them actually getting a bit taller, so that kind of stiffening up will happen at the front. As a vet, if you're looking at them straight on, then you might see them staring right at you. So when a dog starts to stare and stiffen up, this is a sign that they are getting quite close to going into their emergency response. So as adrenaline is released into the body, those muscles will start to stiffen up, their breathing will change, their heart rate is changing, but those are the visible signs that that's all happening on the inside. So in this video here, we can see this dog is being held by this lady. This situation is very quickly going to escalate if she doesn't put him down. We can see that lip licking, we can see that stiffness. He's staring, he's not happy. His whole facial expression is really very, very tense and anxious. So this is the time to stop and to make some distance from whatever it is that is causing that anxiety to build up. And you'll know what that is, because that'll be whatever the dog is staring at. So if the dog is staring at you, then let their owners just move them away, or you move away. If the dog is staring at another dog, make some distance between yourself and that other dog. Whatever it is that is causing that anxiety, stop and give them that little bit of distance. Just as before, We don't want them to keep progressing up that scale. We don't want those emotions to get bigger and bigger, because the bigger they are, then the more dramatic the outcome. So the more likely it is that a dog's going to resort to bigger behavior, lunging, snapping, barking, that kind of stuff. So what we want them to do at this point, we've established that there's a problem. We're going to give them that bit of space, let that emotion just subside enough that they can come and use their thinking brain rather than their reactive brain, and you'll be able to start working with them again. So again, a bit of space and a bit of time is all that's needed here. So the third behaviour that we should pay lots of attention to and we should never ignore is flinching. Flinching is an indication that that dog is expecting to receive pain. It could also be a sign that they have been surprised. And this is what happens when pulling away doesn't work. So this is the escalation from that. This could be because they're now expecting to have a bad experience. Maybe they're flinching because they're expecting their nail to be cut, and in the past that's caused them pain. Maybe they don't like being brushed. Maybe they're expecting an injection. So for whatever reason, they're expecting something to happen to them which they've not enjoyed in the past. So when they flinch, that's their fast reaction to get away from that. As I say, that will have escalated from pulling away, and that has now become flinching. And it's important to know that sound can cause pain as well. So in groomers in particular, if it's very noisy in there, that actually is a sign of pain. So if a dog is flinching and not wanting to come into the salon, then maybe there's a noise in there that's causing that sort of problem, you know. We want to avoid any kind of flinching behaviour. Just as pulling away, we want that to de-escalate as quickly as possible, and we need to find out what exactly it is that's gone wrong before we try to do anything else. So if your dog's flinching because they've had pain from a nail clip or from clippers of the hair, that kind of thing, then putting in place a plan to desensitize them to that and to give them lots and lots and lots of happy experiences so that we can help them forget that bad experience and expect good things to happen to them in the future. For sound, there's things you can do. You can pad your place out with some cushions and duvets around your dog, because they're really, really good at absorbing sounds, especially sharp sounds, and they can really dull sounds. If that's not possible, then make a recording perhaps of the noises that your dog might experience. So maybe if you're in a dog walker's van, perhaps it's quite noisy in there. There's lots of chains and cages clinking and clanking and dogs barking and all that kind of stuff. You can make a noise CD of your own and give it to your dog's family so that they can start to desensitize them to those kinds of noises as well. Teaching a chin rest is a really good and interesting way to help a dog that is expecting pain, because we teach them to put their chin on your hand, and that's basically them giving consent for something. So when you teach them this chin rest command, you can have your brush ready, you can ask them to put their chin on your hand, and you can start to brush them. And as soon as they've had enough and they feel like that's too much, they can just lift their chin off your hand. You can stop and give them a break, and then once they've relaxed a bit, put your hand back out again, and when their chin goes back on your hand again, that gives you permission to keep working. This kind of technique can really build up trust very, very quickly. And if you're working with dogs not too often, especially as a groomer, you maybe only get to see them 6 to 8 weeks or maybe even longer, then this can build up trust quite quickly and allow them to let you work with them, because they'll start to realize that they do have an option to say no. It would be tempting to think that actually they would just refuse everything, but they really don't. It's really quite an empowering thing. So speak to their owners about maybe teaching them something like that as well, to see if that could help. So refusal is another behaviour which happens a lot, and groomers and dog walkers will often see this. So maybe the dog has got his bum down, he's refusing to move, he doesn't want to go for his walk, he doesn't want to walk with the other dogs, he doesn't want to come into the salon, he doesn't want to come out of his cage. That kind of thing is what we're looking at here. Obviously, when the dog is refusing something, it's because they don't want to do the thing that they're expecting they're going to have to do. So maybe they've associated your behaviour at that time with something else that they don't want. So the bum hits the floor and now they're refusing to move. This also happens when dogs want to seek attention. So they do this at home in their families' homes whenever they're ready to get their leads on and things like that. And then they will run away. Their owners have to chase them around the house and try to get them. On the walks, if they suddenly decide to refuse, maybe they've learnt that they get plenty of attention for sitting their bum down and refusing to move on their walks, so they're doing it for that. But it's really important to figure that out, because if they're genuinely worried or confused or they're frustrated or whatever, then that is going to escalate, and that's not the kind of behavior you want to escalate, because that will eventually end up with them hiding from you. But in the first instance, it's going to stop them from getting in your van, it's going to stop them getting up on the table, stop them being picked up, stop them going in a certain direction or getting their leads on. So for this, we need to find out why, loosen the lead. So we're not going to drag them. Dragging them just will escalate the problem. Look for the reasons why and start working on that. Start maybe building up some behavior sequences around the refusal. So if a dog refuses to walk in a certain direction, see if we can build a little sequence in just before that that starts to make them feel good and very rewarded. And then as you approach something, see if you can use that to get you around the corner. Clicker training is really good for this. And creating choices. Does it matter if you turn left or right sometimes? Maybe it's okay sometimes just to let the dog decide. If you're a dog walker and you've got 6 dogs, obviously you can't let all of your dogs decide, because unless they're working together as a group, then you're going to be ending up going all different directions and it's going to be a little bit crazy. But if they are in a salon, maybe they're refusing to have their nails clipped, that's okay. Do something else. What can you do? Can you brush their tail if they don't like that? Can we trim their coat or something? So looking for choices, looking for perhaps some sequences of behaviors that we could use to lead up to something that will help them into a behavior that they've previously ignored or not wanted to volunteer for. But if we do force them at this stage, then we're going to lead them into another problem, which is hiding. Just like other behaviors, hiding is an escalation of refusal. So when refusal has failed and the dog is not being listened to, then they will start to hide from things. They'll try to get behind things. Maybe if you're a dog walker, you've come to pick them up, you'll find them in a different room, under a bed, in a crate, in a corner, under a table, something like that. And the dog groomers, maybe you'll find them at the back of the crate and they'll be trying to hide there. They won't be looking at you at all. They'll be trying to pretend you're not there. But if you do get them out, then they'll quickly scutter off and try and get behind something else or another person perhaps. So when a dog has got to this stage, then they are actually now over threshold. Their emergency brain has kicked in, and that is the part of them that's making decisions now, which is not a good thing, because once they're in their emergency mode, they've become very reactive. They're not really thinking things through. All they're thinking about now is keeping themselves safe, free of pain, free of fear. So they can become very defensive. If a dog is hiding and you try to pursue them at this stage, then that is a dog that will snap or bite if you try to get them out. So obvious, don't try and get them out of those hiding places. Give them some time. If your dog is in your groomer salon, maybe just go and sit nearby, perhaps just sit on the floor, sit with your side to them and just allow them time to decompress. You know, we've already gone through a few stages here, so it's not going to be a 2-second job, but once they've got into that hiding mode, we need to allow them time to let that emotion subside again, let their thinking brain kick back in again. And when that happens, curiosity will start to take over again and you'll start to see them coming back out again. I appreciate that actually in a dog business, in a daycare or something like that, this could take a lot of time, and maybe it's not time that you have, but this didn't just suddenly happen. There were other clues and other signs that have led up to this. Even if it happened very quickly, there was still an escalation. So if you're looking for those other signs first, hopefully you'll be able to avoid getting to this stage. But if this is where you're at, then it's definitely a wait and let them come back to you by themselves. Hopefully they know you enough that they do feel that they can trust you, and that eventually when that curiosity kicks in, they'll come to you. But if not, this might be the time to get in touch with their owner and see if they can come out to their owner. We do not want to be trying to drag a dog out of a hiding place or reaching in and trying to get them and pull them out. Once a dog has gone into that hiding place and they're shutting down, then We need to give them time to come through that, to work through that problem and come out by themselves. So you can see in all of these cases there has been an escalation process. The emotional scale for all dogs starts at a nice comfortable 0. They're nicely chilling out, they're in their comfort zone, they're happy and relaxed, and that scale goes through a series of progressions up until the point of aggression. So whether your dog is feeling fear or anxiety or anger, frustration, whatever that emotion is, it will start at 0 and escalate, and they'll all end up at aggression. So when we push them too far and they've gone over threshold and that's where they end up, then their communication has failed at all of those other stages, and this is all that's left for them. They've maybe started to tell you that something's wrong. I'm not comfortable with this. That stiffening of the body, stiffening of the shoulders, stiffening of the tail. And once that has been ignored, then they'll scale up to something a bit more obvious, a bit harder to ignore, and that will continue to happen until eventually they end up snapping, biting, growling, and that kind of behavior. But that's always been on a scale, and if you watch out for it at the very early stages and intervene and just give a dog a moment, then quickly it de-escalates and turns into nothing, and you can just get on. You'll not notice the difference. It will be just a 2-second thing. Allow them a bit of time just to chill out and relax and let that emotion dissipate, and they'll come back closer to 0 again, the way you can start to work with them again. So hopefully that's helped give you lots of things to look out for. I'm sure that you'll be looking at all of the dogs that you're working with over the next few days, looking for any kind of stiffening and staring and avoidance types of behaviours like the ones I've described here. When you see them, just stop what you're doing, give them a moment and start again. And it could mean the difference between that dog being a customer of yours for a long time, or in a week or two's time, that dog feeling they have no other option but to escalate the behaviour to a point where you're not able to work with them anymore. So hopefully that's helped. Check out that video on threshold. I'll link to that at the end here, and I'll see you on the next video. Take care for now. Bye bye.